Oh, here's the man
Hey,
of the hour.
Simon.
I'm
Huh.
going to shut up the great interview.
All right. Well, let him do his thing. Can you hear me? Simon, can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hey, let's just jump into it. I've been so anxious to talk to you. Wait. I'm sorry. I do you right. We are slobberingly grateful for any guest we get, even a man of your magnitude. So we got to do the over the top intro.
Oh
Ladies
God.
and
God, here
gentlemen,
we go.
welcome this incredible badass actor. He taught you how to stop being a loser. He taught you love hurts. He stole Chaplin. He killed Keith. He fought in the ice cream wars. You know, the ones with the stripper versus the werewolves. He escaped paradise to go to Panama and did it all the night before Christmas. This man, he who dares to be a white collar hooligan who survived the game to become the last scout. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, Simon Phillips. Welcome to the podcast.
How on earth do I follow that intro? I think, mate. I think we should just drop the mic and just leave. It's never going to get better
Man,
than what you just did for me.
man, this is so great because I'm going to say this next sentence with love. I love your work. I think I love it too much for this reason. You play a lot of bad guys to the point I instinctively don't trust you in any movie I've ever seen. And like any movie, any show, the second I see Simon, watch that guy. You watch him.
Now, in that case, if you instinctively don't trust me, should we just start dating then? Because that seems to be
Okay.
the
Yeah, you
prerequisite.
know what? Let's just start it off right. Let's just start off right. I rock the ring. I'll tell my wife, hey, you've been moved. Simon Phillips
It's
is
not.
here.
It's not going to work. Yeah, I met
Hey,
Simon.
I mean, find somebody else I don't trust. But man, I watch you now. I gotta watch how I word these questions because I watch FUBAR, and this is why we're here. We're talking about it. FUBAR your part in FUBAR was so good, and I'm wording how I
Thanks.
say this
Yeah.
because you gave me what I always have seen with you in movies, and I've only seen you play a good guy a handful of times.
Right.
I don't know what it is. Like, okay, let's just take the thing, and I'm pushing this back where I think I stopped trusting you. This was around night before Christmas when you were crazy Santa Claus. Remember
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Yes, I have to say you like betrayed my trust on two levels because of the Santa Claus and then all the stuff you
Yeah.
did. But let's start with that. Like, I'm gonna weave in FUBAR questions
Yeah.
because
Whatever you like. Whatever
okay,
you
all
like.
right, but I gotta say, like, I only get this one shot, so I want to talk about it all. What was it like in that? Because Santa Claus, although you was crazy, you did have some cool one-liners. Did you write those yourself? Like, or was that just something that you just kind of embraced?
I do like a bit of improv, so it depends on exactly what one liner you're talking about. But with the director, who's the writer of the show as well, of the Nights Before Christmas and the other one, we did two of these Christmas things. He's pretty good at knowing the sort of thing that I'd like to say, sort of because I've done movies with him before. So he's always going, he goes, "I'm going to give you some of these." He almost gives it to me begrudgingly, like the new script pages, and he goes, "I'm going to get there's some. You're going to read some of this, and you're going to like it. I know you're going to like it." And he's dead right because you're like, "Oh, you can't play Santa Claus too seriously," because he knows. He goes, "No, we want him to be horrific and violent and stuff like this." And I was like, yeah, of course it's going to be a horror movie, but you've got to have a little fun when you're doing it as well, because it isn't. You're not really a bad guy unless, as you're chopping someone's head off, you've got a good one-liner ready to go.
Now, here's something that I always want to ask. And granted, when I say I'm a student, I watched a ton of your movies and I've seen a few of your interviews, and you said you don't exactly, you're not the biggest horror movie fan because they scare you.
They
So
do. I'm
why do you
terrified.
do them?
They're much less scary to make them than they are to watch them, because obviously, if you make them, you know what's going to happen. But if you watch them, you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm an idiot like that. I'm so invested in the movie, like not my own movie, someone else's movie, that I'm like, I forget that it's, I really do forget it's not real. I really do forget that. So for me, mate, it's terrifying. And the most terrifying bit about it, I always tell people, is like, if I'm watching a horror movie, I'm not there, I'm like covering my ears, sort of. I'm like, I can't. Yeah, I can't just can't. It's the sound. The sound is what's terrifying.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like, you know, the bit when it goes quiet and the person's wandering around with the flashlight, you know, like looking, and you know that guy, that girl, they're dead. You know, sort of just it's about to happen, and then they're slowly moving around. Something goes behind them, they just miss it, you know, sort of, and you know there's a big ta-dan coming. You just don't know when, and despite the fact that you know it's coming, it still shocks you.
Speaking of something that you know is coming, you
Yeah.
were in The Witcher.
What?
And,
Yeah. Am I allowed
and
to say? Am I allowed to say any of this right now? I am in. I am in The Witcher. Right. Well, I'm allowed to
okay, now,
say I'm in The
watch
Witcher.
how I word it. That's what I said. I ain't trying to, but this is my question.
Yeah.
See, they're known to be super secretive with
That's
scripts, with no leaks, no nothing.
that's
So,
right.
how do you audition for something you don't know you're auditioning for? Do
Do
they
you know
tell
what's
you?
super funny? I will tell you this right now. The Witcher's real name is not when you get the script and everything, it's called something else. It's called Everyone's Enemy. I think that's what it was called. I'm probably definitely sure I'm not supposed to have told you that, but anyway, that was what it was called on season 3, which is coming up. So they're releasing that a bit later. But it's called something else. So even when you get the call sheets for the day to tell you what to turn up as, or to come for the makeup tests, or all the things that they do, you get a call sheet, and at the top of the call sheet it says everybody's enemy, and then you're like, and then you get there and you go, but this is The Witcher, right? And they're like, yeah, and like, oh, it's just like even when we're here, everybody's ID and everything says everybody's enemy, but it has the little Witcher symbol underneath it. So you're like, well, so people know, and they go, yeah, they know, but like, you know, they're so sick, you can't take any photos, nothing, you know, like you can't post about it. I wasn't even sure, mate. I did this last year, and I wasn't sure I was even able. Even I've done it like they finished the season ages ago, and I wasn't even sure if I was able to tell people that I was in it. Never mind what happens or what I'm doing in it, but even that I was in it, I was. But they're like, but we've already filmed it. And I was like, I just filmed it ages ago, but I still wasn't sure. They would kill me. It's a bit like the FUBAR people, the FUBAR guys. If I told you too much about that show, I would also get killed for that. And you'd get killed, I'd get killed.
Yep.
There's a bunch of dead people, is what we're saying.
And that's what I'm getting at. See, because the reason I brought up The Witcher is because FUBAR, they told me kind of pick your questions, like, because not to expose the show or whatever.
Yes.
So you are in that we
Right.
can address that
We
you are
can-
in FUBAR.
I'm in the show. I'm definitely allowed to say that. I've got a piece of
Okay.
paper here saying it.
Now, one thing about FUBAR, the guy you play, and I don't even know if I could say the name or whatever, but
I don't know.
one of the cool things about that is you did something a little bit different than most of your work. You have a different accent in there. It's like a Dutch German type accent.
It's supposed to be a Flemish accent, right? Sort of, but they had me speaking German at the beginning of it, so a little bit of German speaking, which is really intimidating, by the way, if the person that you're speaking to also speaks German, like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's what I was getting at. I was just like, so how do you train? Do you train with him? Do you say like, hey,
Nah.
did I do this
If
right? Or
Let me tell you the best compliment I got from him, though, is that he thought I spoke German. Because I started just doing a bit of, like, my friend taught me a bit of German, and so I did a bit of German at the beginning, and I like to change it up and improvise a little bit. So I did a bit, and then he started speaking German back to me, and I was like, oh no, I'm out. I spoke all the German I know. I just spoke just right there and then.
so that leads to my next question. Like throughout your career, you worked alongside a lot of actors who are tough guys, or just I think like your Arnold Schwarzenegger. You work with Bruce Willis, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is a tough guy. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson, Cole Hauser, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Did you pick up any skills? Does that help you be it? Because you're usually a bad guy. So do you just like, oh, I want like pick and choose, or do you pick up anything from being with
They all have this like magic quality to them, and each of them have something different about them, right? Sort of. But what's good, mate, is when you see the toughest guys, the baddest guys are always the nicest people. So the guys that are playing the complete arseholes are always the nicest guys. And I'll tell you another little trade secret. The guys that play the really nice guys, the love interest, the stuff, they're always the assholes in real life. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it happens. It's like the square-jawed, good-looking guy, sort of every girl dreaming. Who's it, a doctor, or is it? He's always the asshole. Sort of, and the guy who was like, the Cole Hausers or the big bad guys, the Bruce Willises, the tough guys. They're always the nicest guys in the world. I don't know how it happens, but it's true. I'm telling
Since
you.
you work with those people, and maybe this is early in your career or during, have you ever been, I guess, intimidated by someone you're in the scene with, a cross run? You were just like, oh my God, I gotta
For
perform.
sure.
Yeah, like who? Do you have
For
any
sure.
examples?
Mark Hamill, definitely. Like, because you're like, look, man, I'm an 80s baby. So I grew up on Star Wars. So at some point, he's saying lines, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I just totally zoned out because I'm talking to Luke Skywalker. And he's like, Simon. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Sorry. It's terrible. That's terrible. But you're Luke Skywalker. So I don't know. I'm not even sorry. It was just Luke Skywalker was just talking to me. And I just zoned out. And then you're like, I know it's my line. I know I've made it. Cut. You're gonna have to cut. I know it's my line. I'll have to start again. It's definitely it's happened with it's happened with Luke Scott led. Yeah, Mark Hamill was definitely the one it happened with. Everybody else has kind of I've been okay with because Mark Hamill was the most professional person that had his lines perfect. Every other person was a bit more like me in that they like to improvise the scenes and stuff. So anytime I've done stuff with Bruce Willis or something like that, they like to improvise. So that's good because I like to improvise. So we're communicating in a different way. So I'm not too nervous about the lines because I know he's going to change the lines. I'm going to change the lines. And then we're just going to have fun with it a little bit, which makes it a lot easier.
Now, this is a math question, a little bit.
Go on.
So I know I'm hitting you with math early in the morning. I apologize.
Yeah.
But
yeah, all right. Let me before you do that, let me.
Oh, do you think? Do you think? I got you.
Okay, a Red Bull. All right. Okay, now I'm ready. Hit me with the math.
All right. According to IMDb, you have worked on many projects. 89 as an actor, 49 as a producer, 19 as a writer in a relatively short time. Where does this work ethic come from? Did you give up on sleep? Do you just have Red Bull in your veins? What are we talking about here? How do you get it done?
Simon's Life is sponsored by Red Bull. Thank you,
Red
Bull. No, it's mate, do you know what it is? I'm just a coward. I'm too afraid to not work. So I work all the time. Just in case. People are like, you got to be careful about what projects you pick and stuff like that. And you're like, you know what, just work hard at everything. And then the right things, because often the projects I thought this is going to be a big success and it isn't a big success, and then other projects you think are not going to be a big success are a huge success, so it's but here's the thing, if you work on both of those things, it doesn't really matter because people are like, we see this guy around all the time. That's how, by the way, that's how I got my jobs with Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger, all those things, because they were like, we see this guy all the time. He's auditioning for other, shows all the time, like stuff I'm not getting, but they see you, the producers see you, the casting directors see you, the network sees you and stuff like that. Netflix people see you, and then they're like, so when someone drops out or they don't get the person that they maybe wanted to, your name is sort of familiar to them, and they're like, you know what, we see that guy all the time. He's always working. He's always doing something. Get him in. He's obviously able to do it. So get him in it. So then you're like, people are going, it's right place, right time, and you're like, if you're in the right place for a long time, eventually it'll be your time. So it's like persistence. Just keep doing it, and then the good people at Netflix will be like, we got to give this guy a job. Just give him a job,
man. And along with that, like, a lot of the stuff you do on your own, you're kind of behind the scenes, whether it be writer, producer, or something like that. I will say, how important is that creative control to kind of mold your vision into something? Like in FUBAR, I don't think you're behind the scenes as much, but
no, they were interested in zero of what I had to say.
But in your own projects, like Still in Chaplin and things of that nature, you always had kind of like a behind the scenes role. How important is that control where you can kind of shape the narrative of that story?
I think on like independent stuff, it's always like independent movies, like independent horror movies or Still in Chaplin or some of those. It's always good to go, right, if we're making a small indie movie, sort of against, like, because that's my life, is like these small indie projects like under $1 million, and then these like FUBAR $100 million Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. They're two very different things. But with FUBAR, you're working for Nick Santora, sort of, and he's like just a wonderful writer and wonderful showrunner. So it's just really easy when it's Nick Santora, sort of, and Dana Goldberg. There's like really powerful people at Netflix and stuff, and you're like, if you see their CVs, you're like, oh my God, Dana Goldberg, she made so many good things. But if you see all those things, you're like, an Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, you're in great company. You don't need to worry about the creative control, because that there's such amazing talent behind the camera. But when you're doing indie stuff, you want to be able to control that, so that you can not control it, but sort of flex your input in it. I'm never usually the only writer. I don't, have like there's three or four of us to get the best of the project, and there's obviously, if you're producing, there's usually about 10 of us, sort of producing. But it's good to have controlling it, because I don't like being lazy. So I think if you're an actor, I think the time of you waiting for your phone to ring is long gone. I think you got to diversify a little bit. You got to get your fingers in lots of pie, get people involved in projects that you would want to work with, that are really good at what they do, because then you'll benefit in general. Sort of the better the DOP is on the project, the better the editor, the better the music, the better, all these things lead to a better project. The better the other actors are. Sometimes I get involved in producing just so I can hire, or I can have a say in who they hire as the other actor, because you're like, well, if I'm going to do a scene with these guys, I want them to be really good actors, sort of, because then I'll be better, because they're really good. I want them to be better than me, because if they're better than me, I'll try and catch up to them. I'll try and raise my game to match theirs, and that's what that helps you.
Well, that spawns another question, like, and still in Chaplin, like, you got Wayne Newton. Like, it doesn't seem like that's a thing, but it was such a thing. And when you see it, like, oh, that completely makes sense that they would have. So was that one of those things where you want to raise the bar a little bit so you can raise the bar?
Wayne Newton you can't go and make a movie in Las Vegas without Wayne Newton. And just like, it's just some sort of unwritten rule. And it was the one that we definitely weren't going to go and break. And Wayne Newton was lovely. Like, sort of the producer, Ken Bressers there, he managed to sort of set up a meeting with him, and we went to dinner with him before we did the thing. And by the end, let me tell you, by the end of that movie, I had Wayne Newton, his wife in it, his daughter in it, and we filmed some of the scenes in his house, in his backyard. So he was only coming to do a one-day kind of cameo in the movie, but he liked us so much that he gave us everything. And you're like, he's such a nice guy. He's like the nicest guy in show business, Wayne Newton. By anybody, I'm sorry, the nicest guy in the world.
That's awesome, man. So we're getting up against it. I know you got a big day, so we got a few speed round questions.
All right.
What do you think about with speed round questions? There's no wrong answers. If you change your mind in 5 minutes, we're good.
There are a ton of wrong answers. Netflix marketing girl is watching this probably somewhere going, Simon, there's a bunch of wrong answers here. Don't mess up. I'll have to kill you, Simon.
We'll see.
We'll see. Go for it.
All
Let's see
right,
how long
speed
Simon
round.
lives.
Whatever comes to you.
Got it.
You played a lot of bad guys in movies.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite kill?
A favorite kill? Sure thing. Santa Claus chopping my director's head off, because he was the cameo in it.
Okay. If there's a battle royale of all of your characters, one room, all of these people, who's coming out victorious?
I mean, Santa Claus is coming out victorious, isn't he? I mean, there's no deranged Santa Claus is coming out victorious. No question.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Who would you put up against that?
Jerry.
Huh?
Jerry. From, like, these are all your characters. A couple heroes too. Like, if you go in the Age of Living Dead and you're fighting vampires.
Yeah.
I could take crazy Santa Claus.
Okay. So Jerry from Age of the Living Dead. I'll give you that. Okay. If it came down to just two, it's those two at the end for sure.
Easily. Because the reason I love that character so much, that is a guy who did not know what he signed up for.
Yeah.
And ended up like, what? Okay. Because
he's resourceful. I'll give you that, because
exactly.
He
he didn't know he had to be a hero. And he didn't know he had to be that damn resourceful. Like, I don't want to spoil something else. I got set up because I'll spoil that. And lastly, this is a yes or no question. I have
All right.
read this. I have seen you in interviews before to prep for this, and I gotta know. I love your work. Has your dad actually come to grips with you not being a marine biologist? Did he is it okay? Did he take it?
It's still not okay. He's still kind of like, my brother is a soldier, sort of like in the army, like proper, like has, and sort of, and every time I go to Christmas, obviously, they have to acknowledge. So you were playing dress up today, Simon. Sort of, it's still to my dad, it still doesn't really, and I'm like, I earn more money doing than you guys do, so, but they still do like, yeah, it's still not a real job, yeah, and you're like, okay, yeah,
Let me ask a
and
follow-up. In your
yeah.
next film, why don't you just be a marine biologist? You wrote it. I mean, like, just write a movie in which you are a marine biologist.
Do you it might be? I'll do it, and I'll give it to my dad on his birthday. I'm like, just watch that, and then all is forgiven. I hope. That's it. Mate. That's the best idea for a pitch. People are always pitching movies to me. They go, hey, you know what you should do a movie about, and they always give you an idea. That's the best idea I've ever heard. Point blank. I
Yeah,
was like,
you can just.
it would fix so many things in my
Yeah, it
family's
will.
dinner.
Look, Simon, I know we're up against it. This has been. I don't want to take all day. I want to, but I know your schedule is great. I thank you so much for coming to the podcast, man. This has been an excellent.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
And hey,
it's always fun to chat.
oh yeah, yeah. Crush it. I loved you in FUBAR. And anything else you do, you're always welcome back to the podcast. Much success in everything you do. And that marine biologist movie, I can't wait to see that one either.
Thank you, Sam. Cheers.
All right, later, Simon.
See ya.
Bye.